Okay, welcome everybody, online, offline, wherever you are. Yes, I'm going to stay. I'm Sally Lipsky with Plant-Based Pittsburgh. So as we go along, feel free to put any in the chat, put any questions, and then at the end, we will have Dr. Webster, answer questions also that you may have. So I am so excited because I've really been looking forward to finding out about how to make my non-dairy milk. So this is Reverend Dr. Karen Webster, and I'm going to have her because she's has a very interesting background. So I'm going to turn it over to Karen because I wanted you to tell them about the organization that you started, you and your husband. Okay.
Good. Well, first of all, thank you all for giving me this opportunity to spend some time with you tonight. Just in terms of how I'm structuring our time together, first I'll talk a little bit about the benefits of doing it yourself, plant-based milks, either using something like a machine like this, or doing something that's a little bit cheaper, and easier in terms of counter space. A couple different options. And I'll explain the machine first, then I'll do a do-it-yourself demo. And then at the end, I'll have the machine run so you can hear it and then watch it do its thing. While those of us who are in person are sampling some of the goodies that have been brought here. So that is how we're going to spend our time together. And in terms of about me, Sally's very kind. My background in terms of the plant-based journeys actually started in 8th grade when I was concerned about individual and environmental concerns. And then as I got a little bit older, junior, senior in high school, started bringing in thinking about the impact of our food choices as it relates to our community. Then when I was in college, really started thinking about it from a spiritual perspective and how am I loving my neighbor, loving God, loving myself through my food choices. And so as a result of that, also my husband, who wasn't able to be here tonight because he has a standing meeting on Monday nights, he has a similar journey as well. And as a result, we actually started an organization called Healthy Seminarians, Healthy Church. And the mission of our organization is to bring greater health and well-being to seminarians, to clergy, to community faith members in the community at large. And so I'm a co-founder of that. And so I do that part-time, but also my background includes exercise physiology. I'm certified as a health and or a nutrition specialist, but not a registered dietitian, health and wellness coach. And one of the things about our organization is that we really do promote whole food, plant-based in everything that we do. And that also includes being very mindful of oils and sugars as well. That is part of our values of the organization. And so I'm really excited tonight to share with you here in person as well as online some of what I'm really passionate about. And outside of work, though, I do enjoy plant-based cooking and baking, organic gardening, and long distance running. So that's a little bit about me. So in terms of the benefits of doing the plant-based milks is that it is healthier for us generally, or a lot of times for us as individuals, our communities, and the planet. And so there are different ways you can do it. You can on the more expensive side of things, you can buy a specialized machine, and I'll give you some specifics about that. You can also, though, kind of work your way down to, budgetarily speaking. For instance, if you've already invested in a Vita mixer, you can use that as opposed and use a nut milk bag, which I'll be showing that. Or if you don't have a Vita mixer and you have a immersion blender, you can also use that instead. So, and for instance, Aldi's has an immersion blender, and quite frankly, I use an immersion blender for more things than my Vita mixer. Because first of all, it's faster, it's easier, it's more convenient. And so, also for those who are on a budget, it is much cheaper. You can sometimes get these at Aldi's for about $20. So, so if you don't have a Vita mixer, you do not have to have a Vita mixer. Quite frankly, I got one a couple of years ago, and it mostly collects dust in my closet. So anyway, so that we're going to be looking at different options. So in terms of thinking about, though, the plant-based milks, a lot of times people sit there and think, okay, well, which one is the best one? Well, that's actually really complicated because first of all, it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. And so for instance, as an individual, are you thinking about, do you have allergies? Do you have a food preference? Do you have like palatability? I mean, there's those kind of things. We also think about what application are you using it in? Cooking, baking, for instance, soy milk. For some people, it's okay in their coffee, but for other people, it clumps up. Oat milk sometimes for things is a little bit too thin. Soy milk for when you're wanting something thicker like a chowder, it works. There's also sustainability concerns about our plant-based choice and so, for instance, I have a picture here. It shows regular dairy and how much water and CO2 emissions from it. And then as it goes down, there's almond milk in terms of the water and CO emissions, rice milk, oat milk, soy milk. So I mean, again, too, there's different things to take into consideration. So you could make yourself go crazy
Yes, you could.
about all those things. You certainly could. And so at the end of the day, for myself personally, I actually use a lot of soy milk for my baking because it actually if you're looking for a direct sort of comparable to dairy milk for baking, if you look at the nutritional profile of milk versus soy milk, the protein, the carbohydrates, and the fats are similar. However, the soy milk is the healthier. So I use that for a lot of things. And then my husband, he uses a lot more of the oat milk because when you make it yourself, it does not have nearly as many calories as a lot of the ones you buy commercially. And so he likes that because he can get the calorie count in his oat milk about like if you're buying the commercially made almond milk, where it's about 20 or 30 calories a serving. So he tends to have more of the oat milk. And then I have made almond milk using the nut bag and stuff. I've done almond milk, coconut milk, oat milk, and in the machine I've done pea and lentil milk, as well as sunflower seed milk. So I mean, there's all different kinds of things. You could also, I have not done hemp milk. You can do hemp seed milk from a sustainability standpoint. It's actually quite good. So I mean, the thing is you have lots of different options. The spool machine has a button for the cashew milk and the soy milk, almond milk, coconut milk. So sky's the limit on what you want to do. And then, so in terms of looking at some of the costs, so if you buy a machine like this, it's going to run you about $250. I mean, it's not cheap. I mean, that's just the way it is. However, if you start breaking down the cost, so this is actually our second one. The first one.
This is a Chef Wave.
Chef Wave milk maker. And again, I'm doing this because this is what we have. I have no sponsorship, nothing of Chef Wave. There are plenty of other ones out there. This just happens to be the one I'm making. So if you like something else, like I said, you wouldn't hurt my feelings because I have no ties to it. So we ended up actually having the first one for only about 2 years. So you're sitting there thinking, that's kind of expensive. However, if you start breaking down the math, so if it costs $250 and it lasted 2 years, that was $2.40 per week. Now, we were making between about 60 to 100 ounces per week, which is about 1.5 cartons to 2 cartons of plant-based milk every week. That would be about 2 to 4 Tetra Packs. So like, 2 to 4 of these or 2-ish of the other size. So now think about that though, $2.40 for the machine versus, I mean, so if you buy a Tetra Pak like this, they'll run anywhere between, this one happens to be from Kroger, which is not around here. Anywhere, you can sometimes get it as cheap as about $1.80, but sometimes ones like this run up to about $3.
I have to say, Simple Truth I get online.
Yes, and by the cost.
Yeah, yes.
You said you can't. And actually, that's one of the cheaper ways to get it. But so they'll run between, like I said, $2.50 to up to $3. So then if you think about that, it's not so bad. And then, but you're sitting there thinking, well, Karen, I have to pay for the ingredients. Okay, so if you use this machine here, you use that many oats.
Wow.
Okay, so
Wow.
you are using 6 cents of oats. Oh, and actually, I splurge when I make it. I have the audacity to use 2 tablespoons instead of 1.5 tablespoons. So actually, you probably would spend about 5 cents. And these are organic rolled oats. Or, if you want to make almond milk, again, using about the same, it would be using the same amount. Again, 1.5 tablespoons or 2 tablespoons, again, if you want to be plush. So if you do that, buying organic biodynamic almonds, which I do buy from a grower in California, so it's responsible in terms of their process because you're concerned about almonds. So these are very nice almonds. It comes down to being, it is 31 cents of almonds to make your plant-based milk. Now, and you say that's the high end. Soy milk is in the middle. That costs 13 cents.
Wow.
And that again, organic soybeans. So your initial cost, if you are gonna do something like this, $2.50. But each time you make it, we're literally talking just cents. So you put in a little bit of investment up front, it actually really does pay for itself really fast. So that's additional cost too. Of course, you use your own water and you use your own electricity. It runs for about 15 minutes, 15 to 18 if you're including the clean cycle, because that's the other thing too, is this machine. To use it, you fill up the little reservoir, which I did ahead of time. I usually make 20 ounces at a time, but you can also make 10. So I filled that up. And then I will put the equivalent of this in there, and I'll do it later. Then there's a little reservoir. So when it self-cleans, yes, you heard me. When it self-cleans, and it does do a fantastic job of self-cleaning. So when it's done self-cleaning, you do have to pour out the reservoir. You have to do that. But all you then do too, you put this little thing in here. And then you'll plug it in and you push which thing you want. Do you want 10 ounces? Do you want 20 ounces? And then the other thing too is that when you use this machine and some of the other machines that are out there, you don't have to pre-soak. You just put it in. So the only thing you have to remember, although I do out of habit, I have pre-soaked my soybeans. But I also, when I make soy milk, I actually add even a little bit more. I know I'm kind of pushing the limits on what you probably should put in there, because I want to make it, sometimes I want it really thick. So it's for baking, but yeah. So you don't have to pre-soak the nuts or the seeds or the beans or anything. So the only thing that is a couple of the downsides of this is that if you do have a larger family, 10 ounces or 20 ounces at a time, that's kind of cute. Won't keep up with the demand. So there are some machines out there that do make bigger quantities than that. But if you are 1 or 2 people living at home, that's another thing that's actually really a benefit of it, is you can make the amount that you want. So because if you buy a carton, a lot of times that's cheaper per ounce than buying, say, a Tetra Pak with a smaller amount. But then a lot of times you have to hurry to drink it so you don't waste it. So you can really have as much or as little as you want. And then the other thing too, that the one downside of it is it's a little bit loud. So a lot of times what my husband and I do is I have to put either my walking hat or whatever it is, the last thing I'm going to have before we go out the door to exercise in the morning, I put it by it. So I don't forget, because what I do is I start it and then we go walking, so I don't have to hear it. And so also too, you do have to plan in advance though, because say for instance, if you're a morning person like me and you forgot to make it the night before, well, in our house is small. There's no making this quietly. And the other thing too is if you're having cereal or something and you want it to be cold, it does come out warm. So you do have to plan in advance. You have to, like I said, just a little thinking, but it's not so bad. So that's, and the other thing too, of course, the benefits of using this is not only is it, it is actually cheaper long run if you invest in it. You also, in terms of your own individual health. So again, I just grabbed these two. There's other things out there that you could have. A lot of times they do have extra ingredients in here that are not good for us. So this one, for instance, has sunflower oil in it. And this one will have some of the thickeners, or it has the organic natural ingredients. And since nowadays you can have, I mean, say organic, I mean, that word gets thrown around loosely, so you don't really know what that is. A lot of them now are starting to switch away and not having less of the carrageenan like that one doesn't. But again, there's a lot of thickeners, there's a lot of extra, and some of them have a lot of sugar added to them. So again, if you make it yourself, say for instance, if you want a little something that has a little bit of sweet in it, they have recipes where you can put in a little bit of dates, or you can put in, say, if you want to make I wouldn't you're not putting those dates and stuff in here. I'll explain that later. Or like, the fruit stuff, you can put in fruit, you can put in dates, you can put in cocoa, again, not in that machine. But you can flavor it with other things. So from an individual health perspective, it makes things a lot healthier for you. From an environmental perspective, you don't have all of the waste. Or for instance, really quite frankly, when we're buying the plant-based milks in the grocery stores, we're mostly paying for them to bring us water with a little bit of stuff in it. Because again, I just told you that this is all it takes. So if this is all it takes to make 20 ounces, then think about your carton of plant-based milk. You really are paying to have the water in a carton brought to you. So here you get to do it yourself. So I really I'm a big advocate of that as well. And again, it's pretty much always available as long as you just remember ahead of time. And so that is one option. Like I said, I will not run it right now, because if I hit the start button right now while we're talking, you're not going to hear me because it's going to be making its noise. So in terms of now, if you are interested in, actually, I'll pause for a second because I'll actually ask if there's any questions right now. So that way. Yes.
Can you put different kinds of things in the same cycle?
Yep.
So you can do like half oats, half soy.
Yep. Yep, exactly. Yeah.
You said yours lasted 2 years. Is that typical or?
I haven't actually done to find out. I think what happened is that I stored this next to our toaster oven. And it's not that, I mean, it was close. It wasn't like right next to it. But the thing is, we actually use our toaster oven for a lot of things because from an environmental impact, it's far less resource intensive than using the oven. And so even when I'm roasting tomatoes and stuff, a fair amount of moisture was coming out of it. I think the moisture got into the motherboard. And so what happened was when I bought this one, I've moved it over here so that it's not next. So I think that what the problem had to do with where it was located and just not thinking about it. Because I know, for instance, dishwashers, some of the ones that have the electrical paneling up on the top where it makes the front of your panel looks nice. Well, they get moisture in there and they break. So actually the dishwashers that have, more classic on the front tend to have less electrical problems. So I think that's probably why. So I'm hoping this one will last longer. Are there any questions online?
No.
No, okay.
No.
Just want to make sure. All right, so then the next thing I'm going to show you how to do is, and actually until yesterday, I actually had never made almond milk in there. So if you're here in person and do have a nut sensitivity, if you wanted to try the soy milk or the oat milk, there's actually had never been any nuts in there until the almond milk, which I made last. So I actually was aware of that. And so I'm now gonna,
Thank you.
yeah. And then the other thing is, so what I did do though was, for the demo, I'm just going to show you how you can make, again, a lot of the different plant-based milks you can use using just a immersion blender and a nut milk bag. And so how it works is this is where you have to do a little bit of thinking. So depending on if it's a seed or a nut, a lot of times the average time to soak 8 to 12 hours, other than oats. Oats are more, like you can actually do this about as low as 30 minutes. The thing is, oats, the longer you soak it, the slimier they get. So, and that's a lot of times why people don't like oat milk, is kind of the slime factor. So, but what I did was I went ahead, and honestly, when it comes to soaking the beans or soaking the nuts, it is not an exact science. So I stuck it in the refrigerator at some point yesterday. It was longer than 12 hours. And I went ahead and just, and once you're done soaking it, you rinse it. And so I did that step ahead of time, so I didn't have to rinse it now, but it was soaking for 12+ hours, because again, don't worry, it's not exact science. Okay, and so then what you do is you'll have a nut bag, and this is organic cotton. And right now, again, you can go on Amazon or whoever you want. Again, no ties to anybody. You can get organic, fair trade nut bags, nut milk bags. Right now, I saw on Amazon last night, it was 2 for $7. So again, it's not very expensive. And so then what I do, and also what I found, you might be saying, Karen, for those of you who are here, you might be able to see, Karen, your bag's inside out. Yeah, I did that purposely, because what happens is if you put it in here, and I'm gonna be squeezing it out, when you have the pieces in here, it's easier to wash because they don't get caught in the seam. So I always
Wow.
actually do it inside out. It's just one less thing to make it easier to clean. So in case you're wondering, it's inside out. I know. Okay, so, and I love baking and cooking, but I also, I always try to figure out ways to make things easier. And then, so I also, the immersion blender came with this plastic thing, but I honestly use this plastic thing to hold it. I'm actually do most of my blending, and this was a mustard jar. I actually do most of my blending in glass, because one of the reasons why I do it is, I mean, you got the immersion blender in there. I have no idea what is coming off in terms of microplastics, but again, I just try to avoid the plastics when I can. And also from the standpoint of storing things in the refrigerator, I've got lids. I can stick things in the refrigerator. So I'm always, these are my friends. Our refrigerator is stuffed full of mason jars. So what you do is the recipe for the do-it-yourself almond milk, which is what I'm demoing tonight, is it's 4 cups of water and 1 cup of the soaked almonds. So what I'm going to do is I went ahead and just measured into here. And all I have to do is pour it in here. And I really love my mustard jar because it's slightly bigger, but again, this is when this mustard isn't sold around here. So we covet our mustard jars. But we can't, I have a hard time. And when you find out something that's really good, I just can't part with it. So I actually, over the years, we've collected a number of these mustard jars. So but if you do have a Vitamixer, I will say the nice thing is that, it really does. You can, you run your Vitamixer for about 30 to 45 seconds and it does blend it finer than what it does with an immersion blender. But again, if you don't have a Vitamixer, don't want to invest in this is one of the cheapest ways you can do it. And so all you have to do is stick it in here. And then I'm gonna just blend for about a minute. Again, not an exact science. I actually don't even know how long it was. I just look at it. So then the next thing you do is, so I'll be squeezing it in the nut bag here, but since some of the nuts is on here, I just put this in here. And then when I'm making it for myself, I do not suppose. But if y'all want to taste it tonight with me squeezing the nut bag, we're going to, we'll step it up. So if you're making it for yourself, you don't have to do this.
I do have a question.
Yes.
Did you say whole almonds or slivered almonds?
So because I was using the immersion blender, I went ahead and I did just chop them. And I just have an old school. I just did that. Yeah. I have not tried using whole almonds with the immersion blender. I probably would not do that. I've always pre-chopped.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good question. So then what I do is I'm just rinsing. So this is both rinsed water, but it's also what I'm using. So. Again, it's all about efficiency. And so then you just pour the stuff in here.
Does it matter what type of immersion blender you have?
I think they're all the same.
As far as I know, I mean, they're pretty much all the same unless
Okay.
there's something I don't know of. So if there's any details that you're asking about, because it's, I mean, the thing is that, I mean, I know there's some that have, like mine has. This one has 21 speeds. I keep it at one
Wow.
speed.
I have one.
Yeah,
one speed.
again,
Yeah, too,
I
so-
I have it one, this thing, it has 21 speeds and it has a turbo.
Oh,
I keep it at one setting
that's it.
and I hit the one thing.
Yeah.
So so you can probably have the most expensive or the least expensive. It probably does not matter. Yeah, that's a good question.
You got a special blade you use on that?
No, it's just the immersion blade.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, no, this, I mean, some of the immersion blenders like this one. Yeah, this one also has other attachments that you can add to it.
That's fancy.
So this is a fancier one, but truth be told. I use that. Mhm. So all you're doing is squeezing it out. And you're making almond milk. So, and I will say. I have made. Oat milk this way. And again, oat milk is a little bit slimy. And if you're trying to reduce, so if you really like almond milk and trying to reduce sort of the sliminess. So you soak it for about 30 minutes, make sure you rinse it really well. And they say that, if you use really cold water, like that helps to reduce the sliminess. Also, the less time it's blending, the less it gets warmed up. So again, that's, I mean, again, less than a minute, it doesn't get too warm doing that. So,
When you rinse the oats, are you
Mhm.
losing any nutrients in the process?
I imagine you probably are, but I can't tell you definitively one way or another. Yeah. I mean, it's just like when you're rinsing off the almonds, I don't know what, I have not had a chance to know what nutrients are being lost from that. Cause it's just like when you steam vegetables, if you pour out the water, I mean, you're losing some of the nutrients. So I can only imagine you're losing some, but I don't think it would be a huge amount.
So the next, of course, is what do you do with the?
You use it in baking and cooking. So this machine over here, there is no leftovers. It's completely blended in, yeah. And also I'm doing this nice and slowly right now, so I don't make a blooming mess. And also I'm talking to you while I'm doing it, so I'm not paying as close attention. Yeah, so when I make, when we were on a budget while my husband was doing his doctoral program, I will use the leftover almonds. For instance, it's just sort of but you can actually, if you want to be fancy, you can actually toast them and then blend it down, and it's very similar to almond flour. Otherwise, you can use this in muffins, you can use them in cakes. You can also add it into oats and make granola. I mean, there's all kinds of things that you can do. So there's no reason ever to throw away the stuff that's in here. And even like soybeans, you can also, there's a whole bunch of recipes of what to use when you're done with the soybeans, the spent soybeans, there's things you can do. So, yeah, so there is no waste at all. And so you see, this is how you, now I did see a concoction on the internet where you can have a little nut bag holder for you. Again, at my house, I usually just allow myself to make a little bit more of a mess. I'm making a slight mess. Like I said, there's a slight mess factor in this too. Okay, we're just talking. So, so when I'm making the almond milk, I usually am just using the water and the almonds. And again, there are a couple of recipes that you can add in some of the other things. Like some people like to add in a little bit like of the you can, at the time you're blending, you can put in dates. So if you wanted a little bit sweeter, or if you wanted to have chocolate milk when you're doing this, you
Ooh.
can put a little bit of cocoa in, you can put a little bit of the,
Or vanilla for vanilla flavor, yeah.
yeah, so you can do all kinds of things. You do not put cocoa and dates in that. You can add that stuff later, but not when you're,
So this bag, it's tighter, it's not like burlap.
no, this is very fine. So you, for instance, it's a nut milk bag. You don't want to use cheesecloth.
Right, the
Because
holes are too big.
The holes are too big.
Okay.
So I'm just about done. And another thing too is when you're doing it yourself, you don't have to cook any of the nut milks, but say for instance, if you're making soy milk, you can't just soak it, blend it, use it. You have to cook it. So, and there's different, people have done different methods with the soy milk. Some people will pre-soak the beans, grind it, put it in the nut bag, and then cook it. Some people will go ahead and soak it and then cook the soybeans like you would just if you were using soybeans and other things. And then blend it and then strain it through. And there's both methods, but you do have to cook it. And the thing is, if you cook it after you grind it, you have to be watchful of it because it froths. And so you can make a frothy mess on your stovetop when you're doing soy milk. So so this, like I said, there's a little bit of mess here. But now to get to the actually, yeah, to get to the this will be right here, will be the 4 cups.
Mhm.
And then it should measure out, yep, just right. So then I just measured, I'll just put that back in there. I just wanted to make sure my measurement was correct. And voila, we have almond milk. So, now, if for some reason, I'll show you, so this is all good to go. No need to strain it, it's all ready to go. And so I also, use the mason jar so I can, it will settle a little bit after you make it. So like right now, it's all nice and frothy and white. But so yeah, you'll just shake it before you use it. And then I said, these ones over here, there's no waste because it all gets blended in. However, there will be some sediment. So for instance, my husband and I, we don't care. I don't know if you can see that,
Mhm. Yeah, I can
because
see it there.
all the oats are still in here. And so like you're getting all the nutrients. So if for some reason the sediment, first of all, when you shake it, a lot of it gets mixed in anyway, and you don't see it. But one of the critiques of this particular machine is people say it's a little bit gritty. Well, whoop, I just threw it. You can use your tea strainer
Oh.
and you can get out the grit if you want. Again, it doesn't bother us, but if that's a concern of yours, that does reduce the grit. And then the soy milk, like anytime any of them, like this one, you can't really see. It doesn't have the same thing. But whenever I'm using them, I just shake it first. And then the almond milk has also, you can see a little bit of sediment, like how it settles to the bottom.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so you just shake it
Nothing,
before you
yeah.
use it.
How long can you keep that in the refrigerator?
So they technically say 4 to 5 days. Some places will say, like, I don't remember exactly what the manufacturer says. Some places will say 3. I will say that, yeah, we've pushed to about 6 days. And I will say, not from a food safety perspective, but just from like a personal perspective, you can smell it and you'll know like, oh, yeah, no, because it won't get a like a red film or anything. I mean, you can smell it and be like, yeah. So, and since you did not spend that much on it, it's okay. But yeah, I got it to last usually 6 days.
How does it freeze?
It's similar to when you freeze a lot of the other plant-based milks. It does kind of separate and it's kind of chunky. So it's not something I'd really want to make a whole bunch of and then freeze it. Unless, for instance, if you're using it in baking, it wouldn't matter. And a lot of times, like for instance, if we're about to go out of town and we have some left, then I do freeze it.
Okay.
And then I'll just throw it in something I'm baking because it bake good. It doesn't matter if it's separated a little bit. But freezer to your coffee, no. That would be bad. My husband confesses, because I actually drink most of my coffee and tea and stuff black, but he likes to have a little bit of oat milk in his. So he's well versed on what works in the freezer and what doesn't. What other questions do we have?
How,
Oh, I'm sorry.
okay, how long do you cook soy milk?
So you have to get it over 180 degrees, so it boils. So it takes like 15 to, well, I think it's over 180 degrees for. You know what, I'm gonna look at my reference, because I actually have not made it in a bit. So I'm gonna double check and make sure I'm not telling you the wrong thing. Yeah, up to 20 minutes.
Okay,
Yeah, and then you let it cool, so, yeah. But I mean, it does make fantastic soy milk to do it that way, and that one also makes fantastic, but I will say, making the soy milk via that way, it is a lot harder. And since I do use a lot of soy milk, I love this thing, yeah.
So does the machine cook the soybeans?
Mhm.
So you don't have to cook them at a time?
Nope, no,
that's amazing.
yeah,
It is
it's pretty remarkable. Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Even if you were to defrost it, if you, and once any one of the milks, couldn't you just shake it up and it doesn't reconstitute?
it gets gritty. There's something about going in the freezer, and since I am not a chemistry person, I just know the chemical structure changes.
Yeah.
And so it does not go back to like it once was. It's like when you stick a banana in the freezer, there is no going back to what it once was. Now it has the opposite problem. It gets soft and smooth, but yeah, it does not.
And even straining it, you would lose some of the
Yeah.
nutrients. in it.
So we have tried the straining, and again, it gets caught in the strainer, so then you're throwing some of the nutrients away.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of times like I said, you just bake it, you're good to go. Other questions?
Have you used the soy milk to make tofu?
I actually have not, because I have not invested in the blocks, but I will say that this would, like, either way,
The way-
would certainly, I will say that I do make my own plant-based yogurt with the soy milk.
Mhm.
It's phenomenal.
Wow.
So I can tell you about the yogurt. I just have not made the tofu. And the other thing too is, my husband eats a fair amount of tofu. That if I were to make the tofu that he eats, I'd have to quit my full-time job. I mean, it's not that bad, but I mean, because we use more than a block at a time, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but yeah, it makes, and that's the other thing too, with the plant-based yogurts, for a while, you were able to get, I forget what company it was, that had the like unsweetened soy yogurt. And it was really, actually, it was a really great product, and I think the company went through some challenging times and it disappeared. And so now pretty much, I haven't looked recently, because since we make our own, I have not looked more recently, but I know generally speaking that most of the plant-based yogurts are just loaded with sugar. I mean, a lot of them have some fat in it, I mean, because it's coming though from like the natural sources, from the coconut or the cashew or stuff, but they're just loaded with stuff, so.
The only one that's halfway decent is the forager.
I was about to say forager is about the only one that's reasonable.
Not too bad.
Yeah, it's not too bad. Yeah, that was the last one I knew of.
And that's the only one that, and they're.
Yeah.
Actually, your market district in Mauricio is the only place close to me other than Greensburg
Mhm.
that I can get it. I have to drive. all the
Yeah,
way.
yeah,
So
otherwise, if you're
I
in
think
Murraysville,
It's got some culture,
Mhm.
and I'm gonna try to use the soy milk and make my own.
Yes.
I'm gonna
Really?
try, and the Spot, my
Wow.
Spot has a yogurt maker setting,
Oh,
so I thought
Yeah.
I'd try
Yeah,
that,
you can
but
do that.
I haven't done that yet.
and the other thing too is, if now we're going off, slightly off topic, but still on topic. Is if you, I didn't know if you know that is, so once you get your yogurt going, then each time you make yogurt, keep your culture, and that actually you can store in the freezer.
Yeah.
So for instance, if you're on a yogurt kick for a bit and you're like, oh, but I don't really feel like making yogurt, you can keep it in the freezer, and they'll say, oh, it'll keep up to a couple weeks. I've had a culture in there for 3 or 4 months and it was totally fine.
It's like sourdough. My
Mhm.
sourdough culture is like 30 years
Yeah,
old. I
exactly.
got not even frozen, it's in
Yeah.
the refrigerator.
Yeah, so you
I just have
can,
to feed it once a week.
yeah, so you can store your yogurt starter in the freezer and it's totally fine.
I'm hungry.
Yeah.
Especially with summer fresh fruit on top of it,
I
like,
miss yogurt.
and that's actually when I'm making the soy milk in that machine, that is where I will add a little extra, because we used to have access to fresh soy milk that was made and it was really thick, and that's what really makes fantastic soy yogurt. Because the thing is also, if you buy some of the commercially made soy milk to make, if you want, because like I said, I like the soy one because it has more protein, so it's got, I mean, I like the protein, but I also
Yeah.
like the mouthfeel. Is that a lot of the commercially made soy milks have added things to them, so never mind your own individual well-being, it makes for lousy yogurt because it reacts with a starter, and so you get lousy yogurt. So if you want to use commercially made soy milk, you can, but you have to basically get like Eden
Eden soy.
is one of the few places where it just has water, soybeans,
Yeah.
and that's it. And you can use that, and that will work for yogurt.
Where do you get your soybeans?
We go to the co-op in Pittsburgh and buy them in bulk. And so, and you know, last time we were there, I think it was $1.69 per pound for organic soybeans. Yeah, so, I mean, you can make your yogurt for very little. Any questions?
Kenneth asked, do you have something about, Kenneth, know that I have a handout on their various plant-based milks, and I'll send it with tomorrow when I send the email with the recording. I do have to tell you, you mentioned the co-op. Yesterday I was driving from Charlottesville, Virginia. We stopped in our favorite place. We go Berkeley Springs with a little
Oh, yeah.
cute art.
Lovely.
Yeah. And there was a little natural food, and I walked in and I bought a few things. I was, potatoes, sweet potatoes. I think I was checking out, and I said, oh, I stop here when we go through. And she said, where are you from? I said, Pittsburgh. She said, oh, I love Pittsburgh. She said, that's where I'm going to retire to. She said, have you ever been to the co-op? I said, yeah. She
Yeah.
said, oh, every time I go to Pittsburgh, her daughter lives in Switzerland, I go to the co-op because it's my favorite store in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the co-op, I mean,
Uh-huh.
my husband and I have lived in lots of places, and the Pittsburgh co-op is one of the nicer of the co-ops. And also, speaking of recipes, for those of you who are in person, like I said, if you're interested at all in just seeing, I had just 3 of the do-it-yourself ones, or otherwise, if you don't want a paper copy, you can just sign, I just use my organization's handout or sheet. If you want me to email any of these to you.
I'll tell you what, if you email me the copy of that,
Yes.
I will attach it to the email that's going out to
There we go.
everyone here and everybody who signed up.
That works perfectly.
Okay,
Awesome. But if it, like I said, I have some paper copies if anybody wants.
okay.
So I'll leave this up here, but, yeah, so when we are done with the questions, then you'll have a chance to sample these. And then what I was gonna do is, like I said, let this run. And what I was gonna do was have it, make the, coconut milk. And what I will say with the coconut milk is, of the ones that I have made, it is the one that is the most, the coconut does not grind down as much, so it is definitely grittier. And also, if you'll have, if you want to taste it when it's warm, you certainly can. But this is not like when you get the can of coconut milk, when you're doing Asian cooking. It is more like the coconut milk in the bigger cartons, so it's not rich and creamy. No, it's more like I said, the bigger cartons. So it's that coconut milk, not the canned coconut milk. Yeah.
So it probably is healthier looking at the saturated fats than it sounds like it's.
Well, it would be similar nutritionally to the ones in the bigger cartons.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's still got saturated fat in it, but
Not
compared to
as much.
but not nearly as much as the cans.
Yeah,
But again, like, I mean, I'll use some of the stuff in the cans, but I just don't use a lot in the cans.
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
use
or I
like the
put
light.
extra water, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So I will, like I said, in a second, I'll let it, and now for this one, you do have to use a whole 5 tablespoons, which this is organic, coconut in the bag I actually did not do the math on the 5 tablespoons, but what I do know was the bag, it was a pound, I don't know, 12 ounces, was $3.79, and this is 5 tablespoons from that. So I'm guessing it's probably also pennies. Yeah. So that will be, like I said, when we're done, I'll let it grind and make the noise. But I don't want to do that, and I'll keep that.
Nothing sounds like my ice cream machine.
I
have to
mean,
leave the room.
yeah, I mean, this isn't, it's not like, it's not piercing or anything, but it's just, for instance, if you're in the room with someone, it's just not, it's not a very good conversational starter. I mean, it's not a partner, so, but I won't, before I plug it in though, or the other questions.
I
Yes.
have a question, I guess it's more of a comment. The other day, I didn't have any plant milk in the house.
Mhm.
And I was too lazy to, go anywhere, but I have always have rolled oats.
Mhm.
But I didn't soak it or anything. I just put it in my blender with water and some oats. I didn't have any idea how much.
Yeah.
I probably used way more oats than I should have, but. And I don't have a Vitamix. I've got a 60-year-old Osterizer.
Yeah.
Which I love because it's got the glass
Mhm.
pitcher
Yeah,
and the
exactly.
motor's pretty strong.
Mhm.
If it dies, I'm probably gonna cry really
Oh,
bad.
yeah, I
because
would
it's been
too.
around.
Yeah,
It's my
absolutely.
mom's.
Mhm.
It was my mom's, but I blended it, but I don't, I don't have nutmeg or anything. I just poured it in like one of those wire strainers, like a big one.
Mhm.
And I didn't push it through because I thought it would get slimy and
Yeah.
it wasn't slimy at all.
Mhm.
And then what I had left in there, I cooked it for my breakfast.
Oh.
And it cooked up, it wasn't like regular oatmeal, it was almost like cream of wheat.
Yeah.
But with
Mhm.
oats.
Yeah.
It was absolutely
Yeah.
delicious, and I poured the oat milk
There you
over
go.
it
Yeah.
for breakfast.
Yeah.
And my husband thought it was like the best thing he ever had.
Really?
Yeah.
It was just, experiment, I mean, I had no idea, how it would turn out.
Exactly. So yes, I mean, anything from, so, yeah, this Vitamixer blenders are totally fine too. Or, immersion blenders, any of those.
Have you ever made a banana milk? I just read that somebody puts the banana milk on their cereal.
I've done that.
Have you done a banana?
I have not done the banana milk because I like bananas just as they are. So I have not ventured and I have not tried all the things because I just like my soy milk and my almond milk and my oat milk. I don't do anything to them. But yes, you certainly can.
So how would you make you said you've done it, Marty, you
The
made,
banana milk,
yeah,
just blend up a banana, I just put a little bit of water in.
Okay,
in
it's like
the
a
blender,
banana
and I
sponge.
just poured, I've done that where I just poured it over cereal.
yeah, it'd be good for kids that has that
Yeah,
sweet, yeah.
that's where I made it for my grandkids.
Yeah.
You kind of knew it had to be all those kids.
Yeah,
But they love it. They think it's like the best thing ever.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
We have a instant pot blender that I actually pulled out of the trash
Good for you.
and fixed. And it's got a rice milk and a soy milk.
Mm.
Oh,
So
really?
and it's got a thing where it'll make soup too, but you don't cook it, it heats up. Tells you how hot it is.
That's interesting.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I mean, a lot of these gadgets or machines now have all these various 500 things they can do. So,
Yeah.
so that's the thing is like, so if you have an Instapot, I mean, you can, do similarly. So like I said, there's what it comes down to is whether you invest in something like this or look what you already have and see how you can do it. The bottom line is that we have the options to make it ourselves.
Right.
And to really make it healthier for ourselves and our community, and the world around us, really at the end of the day.
Can you actually use a Vitamix? I'm a new Vitamix person.
Yeah.
Can you actually make all the different plant milks? in a
So
Vitamix?
it would be similar to this.
Oh. okay.
So you have to do the soaking, then you put it into the water and you have to blend it, then you put it through the nut thing. So that's why I'm saying it doesn't matter if you have a Vitamixer or the,
Okay.
Yeah.
That answers that.
yeah, right. But the thing is that with the Vitamixer, it does blend it even finer.
Yeah.
But you're still doing the same kind of thing. Yeah.
Hey, when you talked about the soybeans, I grew up in Japan, so I grew up eating a lot of soy.
Mhm.
So the residue from making soy milk is called okara,
Yeah, exactly.
and it's real good in the stir fry.
Mhm.
Vegetables
Yep.
and stuff. So-
Yeah, you can toast it
Mhm.
and throw it into things. Like I said, there's so many things. I mean, my husband and I have used the spent soybeans on all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they don't waste it at
Yeah,
all.
it's a luxury of it.
Mhm.
Same
Yeah.
way with if you boil soy milk
Mhm.
and let the skin form,
So good. The skins.
the yuba, it's
Mm.
like absolutely delicious.
That's one of my favorite things when making the yogurt is to pull that skin off. Oh yeah, it's tasty.
I put the dried skin,
Well, if you go to like a vegan restaurant in Tokyo or something, if you like, there's a really good vegan sushi restaurant and they use the yuba
Mhm.
to make like the sushi instead of like a
Uh,
fish or
yeah.
something.
Right.
It's so good.
I bet you that'd be fantastic.
It's really
Yeah.
awesome.
My.
Any other questions, thoughts,
No,
comments?
but you have to do demonstration, vegan Japanese cooking.
Actually, I realized like I used my other plug. It's not 3 long. All right.
This is a small restaurant in Squirrel Hill. It's a noodle restaurant and they have the skin, the tofu skin.
Mhm.
And that was really good.
It's delicious.
Which one is it?
It's right off Shady. It's Shady on the uphill side of Forbes.
Okay.
And it's a really nice little restaurant.
I think we walked by yesterday.
What's
Yeah,
that?
I think we walked by yesterday
Oh.
and I was like, That's why I was like, I think I know what you're talking about. All right, any other questions?
No other questions. You can start it going and our, yeah,
Okay.
online audience will hear it and then we'll we'll sign off there.
Let's see.
Something with noodles.
And so I did coconut, then the volume is 20. Not the sound volume. That's not that loud because they'll get a little bit loud. No, it's louder than that.
It's not that long.
And the thing is though, no, if you're like, Karen, are you kidding me? Yeah, no. Right now, it's just heating up the water and then it's putting it onto the coconut. And then it's gonna sit there and get warmer and warmer and warmer for like the next 2 or 3 minutes. And then when it starts grinding, that's when it's making some more noise. But again, if you're comparing it to a Vita mixer or like a mixing bowl and stuff, it's not that loud. It's like I said, it's just not a conversational thing to have a conversation with. It's certainly louder than that. Yeah.
And
So-
how long have you had this one?
This one I only had a couple of months. Yeah.
And you liked it well enough to get it again.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah,
It just
I
sounds that way. to
mean,
speak.
there's times, I mean, I make probably on average 3 to 5 of these a week.
Wow.
So. And then answer the question though too about if you, there are a couple of products out there where if you don't want to do it yourself and you want to have something to back up in the pantry. For instance, like the soy milk, now Organics has like the powder again. It's not awesome, but if you were in a bind, that is just organic, ground up organic soybeans, and you just add water, shake it in the jar, and you've got instant soy milk. So I always have that as a backup in the event that I didn't have enough, or I'm baking something and I just need like a quarter cup more. It's like, oh, so I always have that as a backup. But some of the ones I have not ventured outside of. I mean, I've tried some of the almond alternatives, but that's the only one I can really stick to. It's really good. So, like I said, so those of you here, like I said, if you want to come up and sample, we can do
Yeah,
that while we're waiting for it to make its noise. So this is a soy milk S. And I'll just keep this by it so you can see it. And then the oat milk. It's back in here so we don't accidentally knock it over. Almond. And then if you want to taste the difference, between this one, I did go a little fancy. They did say you could lightly toast it. So this is lightly toasted.
Ooh.
oat milk. And this is just raw.
The gourmet.
Yeah. And then I have the cups for y'all. Oh, feel free to come on up if you'd like to try. Open the lids up. And again, if you're used to the commercial stuff, they'll taste a little different. I will tell you that much.
Eh,
Might have to go this way. Yeah.
And if you want it. Maybe you need filtration. So that's soy, that's the oat, this is the almond, that was by machine. That's the almond milk that was,
You trust us.
oh, you can go ahead and pour it. There's the cups right here. Yeah, no, by all means. And if we make a little bit of a mess, it's all right. We can wipe it off.
Yeah.